All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here, we're doing our preview and prediction for the CUSA Championship game, a rematch between Kennesaw State and Jacksonville State. Owls, 2.5-point favorites, 59.5 is the total, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports Network from Jacksonville, Alabama. Getting things started with the Kennesaw State offense against the Gamecock defense. Respectable unit, 29 points per game, led by quarterback Amari Odom. He's been respectable this year as a dual-threat player, 214 yards per game through the air, complete about 65%, 17 touchdowns, another near 400 yards, and 7 scores on the ground. This is a team that has been respectable when it comes to their production, 400-plus yards per game. When they played Jacksonville State a couple weeks ago, they had almost 600 yards of offense in a losing effort, showcased tremendous balance. They were really able to find explosives through the air and do well on the ground. Gabriel Benyard at receiver is a phenomenal player, one of the best in the conference, 877 and 9 scores receiving. Christian Moss has been a respectable number 2, and then the rest of the production's kind of sporadic. I think this is a respectable Kennesaw State offense. Jacksonville State is going to need to look to find better production on the defensive side of the ball, Nick. They've really improved since that game against KSU. But it wasn't by a whole great tune. They still have given up 200-plus rushing in 3 straight games now. They're not all that great in getting into the backfield. They don't have the greatest of defensive lines. Talon Carter, defensive tackles, a nice run stopper at 300 pounds against the Kennesaw State offensive line. It's good on the interior, but their tackles have really struggled. Jadarius Lee at left, and then at the right tackle spot, Nikola Novovic. He's not been very good, but Jacksonville State doesn't really have the advantages on the edges. They really take advantage of that. So this seems like it's going to be another good game for the Owls on the offensive side of the ball with their balance.
Yeah, this is a really solid offense. I think this has been a good offense to watch for Kennesaw State. 29.1 points per game is solid, 4.21 yards per attempt. It's a pretty good number, about 6 yards per play overall for the offense. They're really solid, right? I think they have a really good nucleus they put together here, certainly in terms of the pass attack that has been really solid for this team. Odom has been a really good quarterback, right? 65% comp rate, I think solid. 2,100 yards passing, 17 touchdowns to 6 picks. I think those are all really good numbers for him. Certainly at this level, I think he's been really good. The 17 touchdowns does strike me as a really strong number. I think Odom has been a really good asset. Obviously, the 7 rushing touchdowns, about 400 yards on the ground as well. So he's certainly been a good asset for this team. Gabriel Benyard has been an incredible receiver, one of the best in the conference. 877 yards receiving, 16.2 yards per grab, and 9 scores. He's been really good. Christian Moss, 600 yards receiving for this team, 2 touchdowns. He's been good. Clayton Kopic has been solid as well, 283 and 5 scores. He is a big red zone target for this Kennesaw State Owls offense. I like what the offense is able to do. They have decent balance. They're certainly not the best at running the ball. You would probably like to see them run the ball a little bit more efficiently this season. Coleman Bennett's their top guy on the ground, 635 and 3 scores. He's really been the guy that's been getting a lot of the carries, and obviously Odom is a big threat in the red zone for this offense on the ground. As for this Jacksonville State defense, right, 26.8 points per game. Definitely not the greatest number in the world, 4.25 yards per attempt on the ground, 5.8 yards per play. You highlight the stat that gave a boatload of yards to the same Kennesaw State Owls team the last time these two teams played. They have some good pieces in the secondary. I think that's certainly a potential matchup advantage for the Jacksonville State team. I think your defensive line is a little bit weak compared to where they need to be, but the KSU offensive line's been a little weak as well at times this season. Giving up 211 yards in the first meeting is interesting, and I think they have some good run stuffers, right? Productive linebacking duo, which I think is something you look for here. I think Max Sanders is a great linebacker at this level, 6'6" total tackles, 9 TFLs. Certainly a guy you want to potentially lean on if you're Jacksonville State. I'm expecting points in this game. I think there'll be a fair amount of points in this. The total is around 60, I believe, depending on where you get it at. Right now, 59.5 is what I'm seeing, courtesy of DraftKings. I think the over is a decent look. I think there will be some solid points on the board here. I think this Kennesaw State offense can put points on the board. I like the pieces they have. The offensive line's a little weak. That may be a potential advantage if Jacksonville State can take advantage of that and fight through that, put some pressure on the quarterback. But I like what Odom can do. I like the Owls to score some points here.
I think they do got nice linebackers. Max Sanders, Walker, Osteen are nice against the run. Not all that well against coverage, though. I think the safeties are pretty good. Caleb Nix, Trevor Woods, these guys are going to be the best playmakers. The corners really struggled this year for Jacksonville State, though. But those safeties have helped contribute for 12 interceptions this year. That the Gamecocks have collected. Moving to the other side of things, you have a Jack State offense that's going to look to counter that KSU balance with an elite run game, 262 yards per game. Rich Rod departs, and nothing changed, though. This scheme stayed exactly the same. 1,581 yards from Cam Cook, transferred in from TCU, and he's been elite this year. Also has 15 touchdowns. Caden Creel at quarterback is really starting to find his edge. 4 straight games of 100-plus rushing from him. On this season, he's putting up 6.5 yards per carry, so he's been great despite not starting the season as the starter. Through the air, not a whole lot because that's not what they're going to look to do. About 14 pass attempts per game from this offense. So occasionally they're going to throw some deep balls to DeAndre Johnson, who has been a touchdown machine as of late. He's had a TD in 5 straight games now after doing pretty much nothing through the first half of the year. 564 yards, 20 receptions. So they started airing it out to him, and he started paying big dividends for this offense. That's what they're going to look to do, though, right? This offensive line, they're not the best. They give up a lot of negative plays, but that's going to come with the territory of running the football as many times as they do, nearly 50 attempts per contest. The last time they played Kennesaw State just a couple weeks ago, they did what they do, right? It wasn't the greatest performance in terms of, just running it all over them. 252 yards, that's nice, right? But they didn't completely blitz them. That's expected. They're going to get those yardage, and I think Kennesaw did a pretty good job of hanging in there. Tylen Dunlap, Elijah Hill, some nice playmakers on the defensive line. Those guys have a combined 18.5 tackles for loss. They have a great linebacker in Barrett Hobson as well, who has 100-plus tackles, 8.5 TFL. So they have some guys that can definitely generate some penetration against this offensive line and make this more of a competitive matchup. But Jack State, Nick, they've been so good at running the football. It's so fun to watch. They're going to look to control the clock, and they're going to look to score a lot of points. If Kennesaw can stand tall in the red zone, this gives them a great opportunity to make things more competitive. But you're looking at 3 straight games of 250-plus rushing from Jack State. Nothing has been slowing them down. Do you think Kennesaw has the capability of doing so in this one?
No, I don't think so. I think this is a pretty clear playbook from Jack State. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. They're going to run the ball all day, 30.2 points per game, 5.54 yards per attempt, about 6 yards per play overall. They run the ball so efficiently here, right? They're really good on the ground. You rattle off the numbers there. I think Creel is a decent quarterback when he has to be, nothing special. The 18 or 1,200 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 62% comp rate, nothing special, right? But he's been serviceable when necessary. Cam Cook, almost 1,600 yards rushing, 5.7 yards per attempt. Just been absolute dynamite. Creel has about 1,000 yards himself, 6.4 yards per attempt, 6 scores. Really good numbers there. They've just been really solid on the ground. That's kind of been the 1-2 punch there, right? Cook or Creel. They're going to let one of them run it. They're going to get one of them out there. He has been, 276 attempts is a jawing number for Cook. That guy gets the ball a ton. They're going to attack you over and over again. And, Kennesaw State was unable to stop them in the first matchup on the ground. I don't think they'll be able to figure it out right now. You saw Jacksonville State win that game 35-26, relying on the rushing attack, which I think is, again, the key to success here is run the ball, have a lot of success. The quarterback option game, the quarterback draw game, getting the quarterback involved will always be a key thing for this offense. I like some of the pieces on this, Kennesaw State defense. I think it's not a bad unit necessarily. Hobson at linebacker, Christopher at linebacker are 2 good players, specifically Hobson, 120 tackles, 8.5 TFLs, 1 interception for 7 yards, return at 5 pass breakups. He's been really good. They're going to have to try and plug the gaps, try to be strong against that offensive line, try to find a way to, create negative plays, force turnovers. If you want to stay in this game, you're going to have to, get this team off the field quickly and often. Really going to have to force a lot of turnovers if you're Kennesaw State to be competitive in this game. I like what the offense can do. I think, again, a lot of points are in store for this game, and there'll be a lot of points on the board from both sides. I think Jack State will score a fair amount of points and really end up looking good in this game offensively. The elite run game is going to be tough to spot. They have not skipped a beat since Rich Rodriguez left. Just run the ball, and they put points on the board. I expect them to do so in this matchup.
Now I move to the final thoughts in the prediction. Again, we just saw these teams a couple of weeks ago. Kennesaw State ended up recording 4 turnovers on offense, and they still had 600 yards. So they're giving a lot of opportunities to Jacksonville State, and that meant that JSU wasn't really able to control the clock as much as they do. They typically have about 30-plus minutes per game of offense, only about 25 in this one, and they still dominated. So I think if you kind of flip things, they're going to be able to control the clock a little bit more. Like, it's always great to force turnovers, right? But sometimes that can work against your game plan. They're still able to force 4 interceptions, though, 3 of them on Odom. And I think that you're going to see a little bit of that, right? You're going to see some turnovers forced, but you're also going to see them control the clock a little bit more. They also have Gavin Wimsatt, who can get involved as a runner at quarterback. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at him here when it comes to running the football, and it's going to be another dominant performance from Jacksonville State. I don't know why they're underdogs in this game, especially being at home after already winning this game recently. I'm going to stick with them here. I think Kennesaw is a pretty good football team and can definitely make things close. I just think Jacksonville State has the more talent. I think their defense it can be potentially better. I think they're quite even on those sides of things. I'm going to take the team I know is going to be able to run the football with success, Nick, and that's always the team that you should pick to win in games like this where there's going to be a lot of offense. Who can run the ball better, and who do you trust more to force a turnover or two, or even just a stop in general? JSU checks all the boxes for me. I'm going to take them as home dogs, about plus 120 on my book.
Yeah, totally checks all the boxes for me. I like JSU in this one a lot here. I think this team is a really solid team, and they're able just to run the ball repeatedly and really control the tempo in that regard here. It's kind of crazy they're underdogs at home in this conference title game at home on CBS Sports Network here. The weather, about 50 degrees, partly cloudy, so no real weather impacts here. They were able to force turnovers last time against Kennesaw State. They're going to try to do the same thing again this time. I don't know if they'll be able to force as many turnovers. I think they're going to win this game. I have them winning by 11 when it's all said and done. I think there'll be a lot of points on the board. I like, over 60, and I think that's a really solid number, 59.5, wherever you get it. I like the over there a lot. I think that makes a ton of sense here. These are two teams that are going to trade punches. I think it'll be competitive early, but Jack State will pull away late when it's all said and done. I love the talent on this team. This team's in a really good spot for this conference. I think they have a really good opportunity to run the ball. They're very effective in that regard. I think they'll be able to run the ball here at will and have a really strong day doing so. I like the production out of this offense. I think they're going to put some points on the board and have a good day. I think the defense will hold up their end of the bargain. I like JSU to win the CUSA and look good doing it.
And for today's episode, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.